Hello, everybody. My name is Kent, and I'd like to welcome you to the Institute's Leading Edge, a show dedicated to helping the automotive aftermarket service industry. We're here to share as much useful information as we can. So if you've learned something, you like what you hear, make sure to like and share this episode, and make sure to subscribe to our show so that you get notifications when we post new episodes. Speaking of episodes, you can actually enjoy any of our other episodes on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, or Facebook. Just look for The Gear. Now, today we have Mike Pasman and his father, Jerry Pasman, owners of Alberta Asian and Alberta European in Alberta, Canada, and my own father, Cecil Bullard. Now, before we get into today's topic, I just want to take a quick second and thank our partners in a better industry. Dan Vance at Advanced Local, who really does an amazing job at local search. WorldPack Training Institute, who I cannot believe how much education they've been able to spread within the industry. I'm going to give a shout out to FacePay, which is doing an amazing job saving shop owners a substantial amount on their credit card fees, as well as Broadly, who's working really hard to build and connect those relationships with your customers through their awesome platform that they have. Now, back to today's topic. This one's a little close to home. Today, we're talking all about fathers and sons in business. There's a unique dynamic that happens when you work with your family, and it can be tricky to navigate that delicate nature of your relationship as father and son and as manager and employee. So stick around, comment down below any questions, comments, or thoughts you may want to share as we get into the thick of it. So this is the Institute's Leading Edge, episode 64, Fathers and Sons in Business. So how long, Mike and Jerry, how long have you guys been in business together?
Wow. So essentially most of Michael's adult life, and 21 years we've had the shop here. He started working with us straight away out of high school and never turned back.
So yeah, I would say it's probably going on 17 years I've been working at the shop, 18 years, because when they first bought the shop, I was in 9th grade, 10th grade, and then I started working, it was probably even earlier than that. Doesn't matter. Yeah, I started working as a RAP student, which is an apprenticeship program that they have through the high schools and stuff here in Alberta. So started working like 3 hours a day, and then it turned into coming in after lunch, working 4 hours a day. And then, yeah, straight out of high school, started my apprenticeship. So it's been fun.
Yeah, mine was kind of a godsend. I was actually doing tech support, working like 10 hours a day. It was brutal work. I hated it. And that was back, I don't know, maybe 9-10 years ago. And my dad had just started kind of developing the Institute and bringing a bunch of people in. And he's like, hey, I could use some help. I need a secretary. I was like, I will do anything to get away from this tech support job. So that's how I got into it. But it's been 9-10 years now.
It's an interesting ride, I think. Thinking back on it myself, I just happened to mention the other day to a couple of people, one of my joys is working with my son today. And I can tell you that it's not every day that it's joyful, but I couldn't imagine not doing that at this point. I mean, we butt heads and all that, but maybe that's a good thing sometimes.
Hey, Kent,
you guys never butt heads, right?
Hey, Kent, I think you should start a poll for this and see how many times people can guess how many times Jerry's going to well up while we go through this meeting today. I'm placing an over-under on at least 3. So
you know why he's going to do that? Because he's thinking of all the pain you've caused him. That's what it's going to be. It's going to be pain tears, not joy tears.
The other day we were having we were sitting down at lunch, and I kind of just had this thought, and I said, Dad, I think we need to take a moment and realize what's going on here, and just kind of understand that it's not going to be like this every day. That someday you're not going to be here, and I'm going to be going to lunch during the middle of the day, and you won't be here. And that maybe we ought to spend that time to kind of realize and be thankful that we're actually working together. We have this time, and how awesome it's been.
In preparation for this, I worked with my dad, and there was a point where I stopped working with him because we couldn't see eye to eye and we couldn't go down the same road. And I think the listeners while it'd be great for us to get real sentimental, and I'll probably get a little sentimental as we go, I think they want to know, what are the struggles? How have you overcome those? Mike's a hard-headed SOB, and so is Kent. I mean, and I wonder where he gets it from. Correct? So that makes it difficult often to work together because as I get older, I think I see things more from my dad's point of view. Because when I was in my 30s, I was invincible. I was always right. I didn't think I knew everything, but I thought what I knew really well, and I was correct. And the older I've gotten, the more I realized how maybe that wasn't I wasn't as good as I should have been, or I thought I was. So Jerry, what have been your key struggles with working with Mike?
This is only an hour long, right?
Yeah. So you got to keep it to just
unreal.
And you thought he was going to tear up.
Now he's just coming out swinging.
I guess the key struggles are probably learning to walk down what you said earlier, walk down the road together in the right direction. I think earlier on, and Michael was a bit bullheaded and different things, but he's been picking up the baton like you wouldn't believe. The education that he's put himself through, and the reading he does, and working with you two on a regular basis, the meetings. It's really been a blessing for sure. Do we argue about things? You bet. We just had a bit of a one yesterday about dealing with a staff member. And we don't really see that eye to eye quite yet, but we'll get there. So
I don't know that the arguments, as long as we don't allow them to get out of hand, are a bad thing.
Yeah.
So
I would say that moving from a technician's role to sort of the service advisor, now to the shop manager, that transition for us really helped. It was like when I was in high school and out of high school and going through my apprenticeship and stuff before I got my ticket, I was working for my dad, and he was my employer. And that was when we definitely had our issues. But now that I'm working with him and working to build the business and make the business successful, that's completely transitioned our relationship, because I feel like now we have the same goal. Not to say we didn't back when I was wrenching and working for him there, but it was definitely, I would say that was our trying time as a father-son duo in business. But now that, even though we have the two shops, I mean, I ran the European shop with him for probably 4 years before we took over this one. And being up front and working on the business end of things really changed my sort of outlook on the company and my outlook on working with my father every day. I think that was a major game changer for us both.
Was there a point that you guys made that decision? Because for me, I even now today, I still feel like it's an uphill battle. I'm constantly trying to show that I can do it myself. I can do what I need to do. I mean, when I first started, I didn't have any experience working with my dad. I didn't have any knowledge of the automotive industry at all, and it really was this, okay, now I think I'm ready to do it. Can I at least try? Can I push? Can I, and it was this, I'm working for him. I'm working towards this. And in the past, I don't know, 2 or 3 years, it's really taken this shift, but I never really noticed a single moment where it was like, okay, now we're working together.
I'm not sure we're always working together either, even at this point. I think, what gets me sometimes is that you're so sure of yourself, and I'm so sure you're wrong. And mostly when that happens, it has to do with how the guys in the automotive industry, because you don't have that experience, how they think and what they're going to accept, like in our marketing or some of that stuff. And I think, it's very difficult from my point to go, wait a minute, slow down. We really need to do this a little differently, at least from my experience, and I have a lot of it. Jerry, do you feel that sometimes he's not paying attention to your experience?
There'll be some of that, you bet. Yeah.
Can you come up with something that you can think about where that might have happened?
Well, I think we do definitely think differently about the employees and how to reprimand them and or deal with them. There's quite a difference there but that could be maybe my character versus his character, somewhat a difference as well. But we do struggle about that quite often, how to deal with that.
Yeah. The other thing that I noticed was when I was younger and I was working with my dad, I was thinking about my future. I need to do this. The shop needs to do this so I can get paid, because I worked in the shop with my dad, and so I can take care of my family and that there's a future for me. And I think my dad was thinking about, I'm getting old and I don't want to work so hard anymore. I think Kent and I'm still very much driven to take this business, 5 steps up. But I expect Kent to take it, 20 steps up. I think that's part of the struggle, is that you're not, we're not on the same page because we're not at the same age, right? And we're thinking in a different way. It's really what caused me to leave the shop, was that I couldn't come to terms with the future of the business with my father. You guys have you've kind of solved that problem fairly recently in the last couple of years. Mike, do you feel like you've solved that problem?
Yeah, some days. I mean, I get in that like mind space sometimes where I'm frustrated with not knowing what the future really holds, like me wanting to make more money and the shop make more money, but still not really sure like when the full like transition is going to happen, because I don't think Dad has any idea what that looks like for himself, never mind for the company.
I'm going to ask a question that you don't have to answer, Jerry, but how old are you? You and I think we're very close in age.
Yes.
So I'm going to turn 60 this year. And
I just turned 60.
Yeah. And so for the first time ever, I'm actually starting to think about the end of my career, right? What's that going to look like? How long is that going to be? Have you started to think about that seriously?
Of course I have, and that's one of the things that we discussed before the pandemic. I was going to call it something else, but this is, before the pandemic, we were really starting to, focus on an exit strategy, so to speak. And now it's just been, head down, ass up, and we've kind of put that aside for now until we get back to some reasonable sense of norm. So yes, definitely there in the future, I would like to be able to take a few days off here and there. But as you said earlier, I'm still very much driven to make this company bigger and better. The addition of the Asian shop was definitely a hard decision, and sometimes we wake at night think is the right thing to do, but it definitely was the right thing to do.
It's done now, right?
Yeah.
I find it really, and like you said, Mike, it can be frustrating when we've got our fathers who we know should at this point probably be planning on an exit strategy, planning on succession and all of that stuff that we know that has to happen.
They just want it all, don't they?
But then I have to put things in perspective. I mean, it's not, I do have a respect. You have an extensive career, and if I put myself in your shoes, I mean, you've got decades of all of this hard work that you've put into it. And now you have to think about giving it up or letting it go. And that's gotta be trying. That's gotta be an incredibly difficult thing to tackle.
Well, one of the things for me is that I don't unless I become mentally unable, your grandmother, my mother died of dementia, and it came on when she was in her early 60s. I don't see myself like getting all the way out. I still want to be Colonel Sanders. I want to be, I want to be around. I want to be working with some clients. I still want to learn new things. And I can't imagine, waking up one day and going, what do I do today? There's no business. There's no, nobody needs me. How do I move forward? Jerry smiles a little bit. Do you have the same kind of thoughts, Jerry, or are they different?
Definitely. This business is what Anita and I basically birthed, and we were fortunate enough to have Michael alongside with some great employees to build it into 21 years. That's a hell of a long time now that I think about it. And we've always done well. I mean, we've always been happy. It's been much better the last 5-6 years with Michael's help and some different strategies. Now with our new bookkeeper, in-house bookkeeper, that's been terrific. Glad we made that move, which was Michael and Anita's suggestion, which is interesting. But as far as the retirement, so to speak, I look at my father-in-law who sold his farm and stopped cold. He moved into a condo, and every day when we see him or talk to him, you wonder why are you still alive? You haven't, there's no purpose for him getting up.
Why do you wake up in the morning, right?
I was literally talking about Grandpa the other day because he was in the shop, and he completely changed as a person when he gave up his passion. Like, farming was his passion. Living on the farm was that's all he knew. And when they sold the farm and moved into town, it was a complete change in who he was. And
the light switch.
Yeah. And that's definitely something that I don't ever want to see for my dad. I mean, at the end of the day,
yeah,
I feel like he's probably going to be here to annoy me for like at least the next 20 years.
Did you say help you? Is that what you said?
That's what he said. Yes, that's what he said.
Yeah. And
guiding him, become a consultant and a coach for him.
Yeah. Well, and I think for both of our companies, I mean, the Institute and our shops, Jerry and Cecil are the pillars of the company. And I mean, when, for an example, years ago, how long ago did we buy OK Tire, Dad? 10 years ago? More than that?
Maybe more than that ago.
Yeah. And it was more than that because Christy was still working at the European shop and I was on the tools. The European shop struggled really, really hard when we bought a tire shop in town because Dad was out running the tire shop. And I think had we made that choice to buy the tire shop now, I think we'd be in a different situation because now we've got me in the business as well. But people come into the shop and they go, well, where's Jerry? They go into the Institute or they call the Institute, where's Cecil? And if those two people aren't there, I think the business already starts to struggle because most people go to the Institute, not because, I mean, yeah, you guys are exceptional. Your training program's great. Everything you put together is great. But I want to say 90% of the people that go to the Institute and look into the smart groups and look into training go there because of Cecil. And
yeah.
And I don't see how companies like that thrive much longer after a person like that leaves.
So something that I've been really thinking about, and I kind of noticed it when I was writing my own course. I'm working on content myself. I'm teaching now, and that's a new step. Is that whenever because I want my dad's advice, I want his input, I want his experience, and I go, this is an idea I have for a course. This is what the outcome I think is, and we butt heads on my idea, and how my idea is not in line with what like my dad would teach. And it was this, like, I didn't want to teach my dad's stuff. I didn't want to teach Cecil's stuff, because if all I did was teach his stuff, then people would realize that that's all it was. He just gave me his content and I just did it myself. I wanted to have my own content. I needed to establish my own pillar and be my own pillar so that when that transition happens, people, yes, will be sad that Cecil's not there anymore. Cecil's not the one that they're going to be communicating with, but at least I've got Kent, who worked, one-on-one with Cecil, but has his own identity, has his own.
I think you're already seeing transition, at least in our company.
Yeah.
Because you're doing kind of your own thing, but your own thing is in line with the company values and the company mission and, what we're doing. I asked you for years to write a class and start teaching. And, it took you longer than I wanted, but, you needed that time to put the pieces in play.
Thank God you're not ready to
What kills
retire.
me, go ahead, Jerry.
What?
Thank God you're not ready to retire then, right?
Yeah. Well, I don't think he's ready to completely take over the company, but he's amazing. And I tell him that, and I tell other people that. And what I really like is that my contacts in the automotive industry, the people that I've worked with for years, have a great respect for Kent. They're very surprised when they find out actually how old he is, that he's really that young, because he really plays off as being much older with more knowledge and experience. And he does have that knowledge and experience because he's been here for a long time.
Although when people think I'm 37, it kind of hurts a little.
And you're lucky.
That's
You don't have the
that's
white
the facial
hair.
hair though, bro.
People thought I was 47 when I was 27. So you're actually pretty lucky without all the white hair. Jerry, do you find it frustrating when they ask your opinion and then they don't listen to what you have to say?
I was gonna ask this.
Is this actually a counseling session or what?
For me though, that's like the most difficult thing. They'll go, well, what do you think about this? And I'll go, well, I don't like this. Well, that's not right. This is how it's supposed to be. Like, wait a minute. Why did you ask me if you don't really want to hear what I have to say?
I suspect that table can be turned too, though. So,
oh yeah,
it's interesting, and I think for the most part we're floating down the river in the same direction, Michael and I, at the present time, and hopefully it'll continue on. So we talk about stuff, and he's able to make his own decisions as the general manager around here. So a lot of times he doesn't really need to run things by me per se, but he does. But he can make decisions. So.
I think that's one of the keys is to make sure that they have the right authority in the right places.
Yeah.
Let them make some decisions. It's funny because I used to look at everything that we put out. I mean, literally everything we put out, and I used to have my hands on all of it. And now I only look at part of what we put out. I mean, maybe 20%.
When he got his hands off it, the quality just.
Yeah,
easy.
I don't think so. I don't think so. It's different. I mean, certainly our marketing has really improved in the last, our materials and things like that. And Kent does most of our graphical work. He writes our music, that kind of stuff, and produces it. So, obviously without him, the company we would struggle certainly in those areas. And then he runs the day-to-day stuff, and I'm kind of pulling out of a lot of the day-to-day so that I can focus on education, training, and working with, clients and group members.
I might warn Kent that if he oversteps his boundaries, you'll call in Don and have him whacked.
Yeah. I'll bring Don in.
Hey, Mike, does it often, and just because of the thought, because what my dad was talking about, do you feel like you have to take on more responsibility than you really can handle just to try and prove that you can take over the business, that eventually it's okay to have that transition?
Yeah, I mean, I think that you guys have a lot more on your plate than what we do. I mean, you're trying to capture an entire country in your business, whereas we just have to focus on our little city. And when it comes to marketing and, oh hey, I'm gonna go buy a new jacket and shirts and hats for the shop, and I'm gonna approve some advertising. Like, there's definitely lots of stuff that I feel I take on. Do I feel like I'm taking on too much? No, because at the end of the day, I need to be able to run this company, and I feel like I have that ability already to, if dad were to show up tomorrow and go, hey, I'm done running the company, I'm moving to Australia, see you later. We'd be okay. Like the company would still survive, you know? So I don't really think I'd take on too much. I think I probably did early on. But I mean, now that I've been working up front and running the shop for close to, oh man, probably 8 or 9 years now. I feel like I've definitely come a long way. Back when I was first in there, yeah, I tried to take on way too much because I wanted to prove that I needed to be given more leeway, more reign, more authorization, or whatever, however you want to describe it. But go ahead.
Do you think that that you're trying to maybe push a little hard because you need to gain the respect of the people in the company, and so you push a little harder than you might because of that, and you feel like they still might think you're that 19-year-old guy first turning wrenches instead of?
Yeah, I think it's definitely taken, and I don't know how you feel about this, Kent, but I still, to this day, from certain people, still get the feeling, oh, hey, he's just the boss's son, like, and then kind of brush me aside. And I think that has definitely been one of the biggest struggles for me in this company is trying to get everybody on board that, hey, I'm not the boss's son. Like, I am the manager of the shop. I'm making the decisions here. If you don't like it, there's the door.
I think I take it a little differently. A lot of the positive feedback I get, because I do get negative, like what you're talking about, like you feel kind of like this, oh, you're just the boss's son. And I have to deal with my dad's prolific career and the fact that he's incredibly well known. Oftentimes when I hear any kind of compliments, I don't believe it, because I'm Cecil's son. And so maybe that's why there was a comment. It really wasn't on my own merit. It was just on carrying on his own reputation, that people wanted to compliment him, or so, you know. So I get in my own head in that way.
Jerry, do you think in our industry, the guys that we know, do you think that they would compliment Ken if he didn't earn it, just because he's my kid?
Absolutely.
Thanks a lot for helping.
All right, I know where I stand now.
I don't think they would. I don't think that, I don't think they would. I think most of the guys, very few would do that. They like Kent. They like what he does. And they think he's a real addition to the company, as well as I do. Let me talk to you, Jerry. Because we're going to have hopefully a lot of fathers and sons who work together. I mean, this is prolific in our industry, where there are a lot of younger generation coming in, taking over businesses. Guys are hitting their late 50s, early 60s. What kind of advice would you give to dads out there? We're going to do this both ways. So what kind of advice would you give to the dads out there that are struggling with the sons who, want to come in and take over and pretty much run the place?
So I'm assuming that you're talking about people who already work together, or are you talking about sons that are working outside the business and then want to come in and?
No, I'm thinking people who already work together. So there's a lot of struggles working with your son or your daughter in your own company.
Yeah. I think the best thing you got to do is first of all, being involved with a group of any sort keeps your mind in a positive form. And what that does is when you get back to your shop, you're more apt to be accepting of the kids, whether it's a daughter or a son, and their ideas, because sometimes we as older people get a little bit too much tunnel vision, and we have to sometimes be, hey, stick your head above the crowd a minute or something, or look at this we should do this, and be more understanding of their feelings and maybe their goals, and not run it like a kingdom. It's got to be an open thing. It really does.
So you're talking about like the smart groups, because you've been involved with the smart groups since I have, pretty much.
That's right. Yeah.
And And going there and getting that education, that feedback and stuff has really helped you with.
Let's be honest. I mean, we talked about this in the groups quite often too, but growing up in this business as Michael did, I started as a wrenching when I was just over 18 years old. And that's all I did is I fixed cars, diagnosed and went to some seminars on technical stuff. And then when this business opportunity came up, all of a sudden, hey, this is a great idea. But we had no formal education whatsoever on how to run a business. And if you're head down, ass up into trying to keep a business afloat, you don't have time to be nice to your kids. You got to make money, and so that's what really, I think, initially when I started off with an earlier type smart group before you come along. I mean, those things, you first of all, you get some positive interaction with people. You get to learn about balancing books, how to speak to customers, how to formulate a work order, all those other sorts of things. And they really give you the time or the mental capacity to accept your family and help them grow in their life and inside the shop or a business.
I hate to interrupt this flow. I think this is a wonderful conversation, but we're going to take just a second. I have some things I need to share with people. So those of you who are listening out there, I want to thank you for watching. If you're enjoying this conversation, if you're enjoying this topic, please leave us a comment down below about your thoughts on the matter. I want to remind you that you guys can get an incredible amount of resources and education on our new platform, gearforshops.com. That is a mix of curriculum and community. We have something called the Gearheads Network, and that is a place for automotive professionals to grow and develop their businesses. I also want to talk about a previous class that we just had. It was about phone skills. Now, we noticed with our advisors, with a lot of the shops that we work with, and the marketing companies that we also work with, that people aren't closing on the phone. So we developed this course on phone skills. And you guys can go find that at gearforshops.com. Now, done with that, and let's get back into the topic.
All right, so I'm going to continue with my line of questioning. And so I want from Michael and from Kent, we'll start with Michael. What advice do you have for a young person that is in where you were 4 or 5 years ago, kind of button heads and am I going to take over the business? How do I, what advice do you have?
Be patient. Because at the end of the day, you want something and you want it now, because that's how we as the younger generation have been raised. I mean, if you want anything now, you literally can get it now. And the old boys, they don't think that way. But we need to analyze everything. They need to rip it apart and verify that it's going to fit every little nook and cranny of their world, that it's going to work properly. And if you try to force things too hard, that's when you just do that. And I think I realized that a number of years ago. And so when I started having to still ask for permission to do lots of things, I wouldn't just come on hot and heavy with it. I would kind of, roll into it nice and slow, and maybe somehow make it be Dad's idea versus, me telling him what to do. But I think patience is key. I mean, you can't, especially if you're working with a family member. I mean, you got to worry about making somebody mad or upsetting them and overstepping your boundaries. So you got to just take it day by day and work at it slowly. And because if you put a strain on the relationship, that then trickles down and to the employees, and then the business gets affected by it. I mean, that just can't happen, because then nobody has a livelihood. So I think patience is key.
I think I would tell people my age, older people that are trying to get a son or a daughter up to speed in their company, almost the same thing, in a sense, because, understand where they're coming from, and remember when you were 30 or 35 or 28, what you were like. And I guarantee my dad just, went in his room, closed the door, and banged his head against the wall on some days. I know I did. It's interesting in our relationship because Kent's the one that has to analyze everything and make sure it's all going to work in every little place. That's not how it
Man,
works
I have to compete, like I said, I've got to get out from under your shadow. So everything I do, I kill myself to make sure it's perfect, and that's kind of an issue with me. So I try to get things to 90% and send it out, but that's why I'm so intent on working on stuff.
Well, I had to come to a conclusion at some point. And I was probably in my early 40s when I did, and that is that there is no perfect. I mean, I can be perfect for a short period of time, or I can do one little thing perfectly, but in the big picture, there's no perfect. There's good or better, but there's no perfect.
What I was gonna say, back to the previous question,
yes,
about what I would tell sons in this position.
Yeah,
have some respect. Your dads, your fathers have had a lifetime career of experience, training, failures. They're valuable. I know sometimes you can get in your head and kind of discount them and go, well, they're just old, they're going to leave anyway, they don't let us do what we want to do, that kind of thing. But they really do have a wealth of knowledge, and you should respect that. Come to it with a grain of salt.
Hey, Kent, I think you just got a little something on your nose there. Jeez. That was good. That was actually good. That was well said.
Frankly, I take it all back. Get the old guys out. I take it back. We don't need them.
Push them out. I have a sense of humor, right? I'm going to ask both of you, the young guys, again. Sorry, Jerry.
Sorry.
What would you tell the old guy? What would you tell the dad who's trying to figure this out, and what would you say to them?
Are you asking the young guys?
I'm asking both of the young guys here.
I think you need to have some sort of a plan, and I think that needs to sort of be discussed very early on, because I think early on in our relationship, Dad just sort of assumed that I was gonna just work in this company forever, and I think it got to a point for me where I just felt like I was spinning my wheels, and I didn't see what the end game, what the end plan was. And that's when I started getting frustrated with the company. And that was, 5-6 years ago. And then we sort of sat down and had a discussion as to what the foresight, what the plan was in the future, my involvement in the company, the end game, essentially.
Yeah. Because you come at this and you have this weight of responsibility that's put on your shoulders, but then again, you don't have any authority or ownership of it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And that can be a really uncomfortable place to be. Just so the dads out there, think about that, right? They're supposed to carry on this legacy if you're expecting them to continue the business. They have to feel some sort of ownership. They have to feel some sort of control, because that the weight of that responsibility can be really, really quite a lot.
I don't think you necessarily. Sorry, go ahead, Dub.
Jerry.
Yeah, we certainly assumed a bunch, I think, and just we didn't really, particularly at the beginning, like Michael said, we just assumed that he'd be around and we would work this all out somehow, and it would just magically happen. And the reason it magically happened is because we friggin' worked at it. There's no doubt about that. So,
and you got other people involved too to help you get some of that done, right? That's.
And I think that is probably a major issue for a lot of fathers and sons, is because the son, we just become frustrated. And it's, at the end of the day, we're in this industry and we're probably not going to get out of this industry. And am I going to leave working for my dad because he hasn't said to me, you're going to own this shop one day? and go work for somebody else and then just be an employee? Absolutely not. But the frustration doesn't help us to cultivate any sort of care for the company. And all of a sudden now, like I don't have any skin in the game with either of these companies, but my passion to have them succeed is even more important, because I know that eventually Dad's not going to want to be here every day. He's going to want to come in and have a coffee and shoot the shit with customers, and I want that for him. And so one of these days I will own this company. But the not knowing early on is
next week, Jerry,
or having or having anything defined. You know, they have this, oh well, someday this will be yours, or even if they say it, but there's no actual plan in place. There's no actual, it's just an assumption, and then you're kind of left in the wind, like, well, is it going to happen? What is the plan here? What exactly are we going to be able to do? When's the transition going to happen?
There's not little faith.
Well, no, but that's why you both throw that line out there all the time. One day this company will be yours. Okay.
Well, my
if it's gonna
is to have someone come in and take over my company and represent my company in a really good way.
Did you hear that?
And that happens to be the guy that I'm talking to right now in the meeting, who literally is my right arm here. And
Michael did miss a very important part of that sentence that I say, one day this company will be yours as long as you pay me.
Yeah. Well, there's that too, right? I mean, what's the out otherwise for us, right? I mean, the Institute being Cecil is not worth much. The Institute being the Institute with people contributing and gear and all of that, it's worth a ton. It's going to retire me at some point in the manner that I've become accustomed to live, right? And one of the things that really bothered me about my dad when I took over running his shop, and his shop had not run. I mean, it always did okay. There was always food on the table, but it had not been hugely profitable or whatever. And when I took over running it as manager, the shop went boom, 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 boom. I just have a natural talent for shops, right? But I don't think he ever gave me my due. The shop it was always his baby. It was always his thing. And he never was like, my shop is doing really well because my son is making it do well, right? It was, I built this thing. You remember, I built this thing, kind of thing. And that always really frustrated me when I was younger. And I catch myself as the dad at this point going, yeah, but this is still my baby, right? This is still my thing. I worked for, 27 years to start consulting, and I've been doing it for, 17 years. That's the majority of my adult, it's all of my adult life. Yeah. So it's very hard to give that up. As a dad, I'm very proud of my son. In fact, I'm proud of most of my kids and most of the time. But and Jerry's laughing because he knows exactly what I'm talking about. But it's very hard to give up. This is my baby, and it's been my entire life. And that passion that Michael has for being successful in the business is the passion I have for my business being successful, right? And hopefully the passion that Ken has. Jerry, you have anything to say about that? Do you struggle with that?
I find Michael's very passionate about our business, which is absolutely terrific. As far as where do you go from here? I don't really know. I don't think I struggle with that so much.
I would say that I was actually going to say before you asked him, Cecil, that I think that Dad is very good at letting people know. Like if we're at a conference or at a smart group meeting or whatever, he's usually very quick to say that I've been very helpful in cultivating what we have now. I've never once felt that he sits there and goes, this is my shop. I built this and I did everything. I don't feel like he's ever done that. Maybe before when I wasn't involved in the company, but now that I am where I am.
That your mother, that she worked with us here for all those years. It was always an us thing anyway. It wasn't really a me thing. Mm-hmm. So that maybe made that different.
So I want to clarify. I don't have that problem, but I had it with my dad.
Gotcha.
And I think I do pretty good. But there's kind of in my opinion, if you're the CEO of the company, the president of the company, there's a heavy weight there, and sometimes you have to make decisions about the company that other people don't necessarily agree with, or that aren't necessarily happy decisions for some other people. Luckily for Kent, I think he and I most of the major decisions, if not all of them, we discuss and say, this is what I'm thinking, and he's pretty good about listening to what I'm thinking and moving in what I feel is the right direction. How do you think about that, Ken?
It's a shared decision. I mean, I think we both know that there's this, that all of this that we've made has been, an effort on both parts, that it's ours, and that moving forward, we've got to work together. And so I think we know that. And so a lot of the big decisions we make, it doesn't feel like I'm fighting my dad to try and get an opinion across. It feels like I'm discussing these issues with a business partner, with somebody who cares and has the same interest in the business succeeding as I do. So we're into this thing 47 minutes, and the path is what I think some people that will be watching this, they want to know what the path is and how do I work this out. I'm gonna say something, and I think there has to be, you have to realize, I don't care if you're a 40-year-old dad or a 60-year-old dad, that there's going to come a point where you're not going to do what you do every day, because you're not going to be physically or mentally capable, or both. And the only path through that, or the best path, and the way that I see it, is to have someone that you trust and you feel will do a great job. I want my son to have the business. I've worked very hard to build something, and I want him to carry it forward. So from the dad point, maybe some discussions about the future and trying to lay some things out with some deadlines or some timeframes. And it doesn't mean that it has to happen that way. I think it does become in stone in the minds of the younger people. Oh, you said when you were 60, you're going to get out. Well, I'm going to turn 60 and I'm not getting out. I'm not ready. But I think that, Kent knows that this business is his business, and doing things today together and working together like we're partners instead of I own this thing and you're going to do what I tell you to do, moves the company forward a lot more. Now,
he's become a hell of a secretary.
Oh yeah, he's actually I don't know what title we give him. I used to be chief cook and bottle washer around here. I ain't anymore. There are days where I sit at my desk and go, what am I going to do today? I don't have any meetings with clients. I don't have a group meeting. I don't have to write a class. I'll just sit here and read a book. But I think that you need to talk about the plan and the overall plan so that you both understand what the plan is and how valuable, and while Ken said, you need to respect your dad, I would tell you that you need to respect your kids, but I think more importantly, you need to help them feel like they're valuable in the overall scheme of it all. I don't know. Mike, do you think that would help, or that would give somebody more, a younger person more, if they had those conversations, they knew how valuable they were to their parents?
Oh yeah.
To the business?
Absolutely. And I think that's, like I said earlier, I think that's what really changed my perspective on the company, is we finally had a conversation about what my role is and what the plan is sort of moving forward. And, kind of being in, I guess, purgatory, for lack of a better term,
That's perfect.
it's not a place that anybody wants to be. And as a son to the boss, who is, an employee, just being an employee isn't what we want to do. I mean, the frustrations that we had early on working with each other, I don't think anybody really wants to have to go through that for the rest of their life. So if you can kind of come to an agreement on what the plan is, and I think it really helps kind of lift your spirits as a son to the boss. Hey, I'm not just here spinning my wheels. Like, we have a plan, we have an outcome. There's something to look forward to versus just waking up and going to work every day.
Actions speak louder than words, and when you say, oh, this business is going to be yours someday, this business is going to be yours someday, and it's never really hits a point. When you kind of put an action behind it and go, okay, this is the actual plan, that gives it a lot more substance.
Yeah.
We're not sitting there questioning, we're not sitting there doubting, we're not stuck in purgatory.
Yeah.
Well, you've got 5 to 7 years, and then you're going to have to run the whole damn thing, because I don't think I'm going to be around as far as all that goes. I don't think I'm going to die. That's not what I'm saying. But
so we're in the last 10 minutes of this. Honestly, we didn't even hit like most of the questions, but
you asked us like 2 of the questions on the 7 that left.
And we'll probably have to do a part 2 of this. I really enjoyed the conversation. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people out there who
might not be with the company anymore.
I was going to say that
I want to ask before we go there, because I don't want to close this out. And if this ends up running a couple minutes over, I'm okay with that. Jerry, why did it take you so long to have that conversation?
Wow.
That's a good question.
Yeah. I don't really, I think.
Mike's raising his hand. Mike
Hang on,
knows.
Let Dad answer first.
He, I guess definitely it was never in my frontal lobe, so to speak. I mean, it was just, let's get business done, and then when Michael started pushing the button a couple of times, then of course it became more in the frontal lobe, and that's kind of how it happened. I think, is he kind of pushed that button and moved on with it. It's something that I don't think I intended to sidestep or anything, but it just it came when it did, and I think both because he grew as a person and as a manager, while this was going on over a year or two, I think it worked out really well.
Do you think you could have had that conversation 4 or 5 years earlier? No, you wanted it, but I'm not sure we could have had it, right? So,
yeah, I don't think there was definitely maybe some lack of maturity there on Michael's part as well, back 5 maybe 10 years ago. That really, again, I mean, he matured over the last few years like crazy, right? So there's lots of
I've seen it.
I would say that's probably right. I know, looking back at my career here, the first 2 or 3 years, I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I had just barely moved over. I had a kid. I had no college education. I didn't have anything I was really driven toward doing.
Yeah.
So I wasn't even sure if I was staying with the company. And then immediately after that, I kind of, that period of time, I decided, okay, this is my career. And I started really pushing toward it. So,
yeah.
So Mike, you kind of, raised your hand. Why do you think it took him so long to have that discussion with you?
Because I think he was afraid that he was going to have to give it up. But like, that was never my intent. I didn't want Dad to hand me the keys and walk away from the shop at 58 years old. Like, I knew that there was going to be still at that point, probably another 10 years of him being involved in the company. And so I think there was a little bit of skepticism on his part, because he wasn't sure what I expected, or if I was expecting too much, and if that was going to then throw a wrench in our working relationship. And obviously that would have never been my intent. But I think the conversation it needed to happen, and it could have happened 10 years ago. I think like Dad just said, I've definitely matured a lot in the last, I would say, handful of years. But that was after we had that conversation, after we had that conversation and set some things in place as far as like my plan with the company and his plan for me with the company. All of a sudden, I didn't have any legitimate skin in the game, but all of a sudden now my heart was in it, because I knew that in 10 years or whatever the time frame is going to be, that when it's time for Dad to leave, all of a sudden now I have to make sure this company succeeds, because if it doesn't, I'm going to lose my house.
Yeah, I could see. I could
mean?
see why. It's like this. The reason maybe they didn't want to have the conversation is because of that. They didn't know whether or not you've decided that this is what you wanted to do with your life.
Yeah.
And you kind of have to wait until that decision's made before you can have that conversation.
Yeah.
I've seen, because I've known you guys, Jerry and Mike, for a long time, and Mike, I've seen you really grow up in the last 3 or 4 years. You really matured in the last 3 or 4 years. You're much more of a professional. You're much more focused. There's a lot of really positive things that I've seen happen with you in the last 3 or 4 years. So, I think I would agree with you. There's some kind of a fear sometimes where geez, I don't want to leave. This is my life. This is what I do. But also, I think there's is he ready? Or, maybe is she ready? Because there's daughters coming up too in this industry, which are great. I don't know, man. It's a difficult thing, but I think if we're both working towards a positive future, it's going to help us get where we need to go. Go ahead, Kent. You can take us through the last motions here.
Really, there's so much that I think we can cover. The one thing that we didn't get into was, how did a business relationship affect your personal relationships? And I think we'll probably save that for another episode, because that's a whole new can of worms, But yeah, kind of want to do final thoughts on this subject of father-sons working together. Jerry, if you want to start us off.
So the quick question is how many other father-son type scenarios, businesses have you got in the system right now?
I'd say half.
With us?
Probably close to half of the companies, and in the other half,
it's husbands and wives,
kids have not shown interest, and I think some of that is their kids have not shown interest because they haven't brought them along, right? Because they're seeing the frustration the dad has about the business. Well, I didn't want to be in the automotive business because my dad worked his ass off. He came home at 9:00 at night, fell asleep in his chair, and did it all again. And I thought, I don't want that for my life, right? Right. So a little more than half probably have a kid, a son or a daughter that they love to take over their company. And then there's a few more that have sons or daughters that they love to take over their company, but their kids have literally pushed it away. So that's the answer. Okay.
Just curious.
Yeah.
The last couple of years have been, even when we started talking about the succession thing, and if you will, we had no idea we'd be owning a second shop at that point. That kind of, I think that level of maturity for both of us, God grants you wisdom when you need it. And all of a sudden, here we go. Now Michael comes in the other day and he says, I just drove in the north end of town and there's a beautiful shop up for sale up there.
Numero tres, let's go, baby.
I thought my mom was going to kill me.
Yeah. No, but it's all about the people. It really is. Whether it's sons or daughters, the people. Michael told the story about the tire shop, right? I mean, we didn't have the right people in place, plain and simple.
No.
And at that point, we didn't know how to cultivate them either, and hence we got out of that location. Was it the good thing? I don't really know, but we didn't have the right people, and we got out by the skin of our teeth and carried on and kept building this business bigger and better. So working with him is particularly satisfying because of what direction we're heading. My wife, of course, you guys all know her. She still plays a big part here, even though she's not here. during the day much anymore. And of course, golf has encompassed her, which is awesome. Her health is very important, and she feels better and looks better. And so to be able to, our goal obviously is to relieve the financial stress off our shoulders. And honestly, with Michael's help and who knows what else happens, but to look for some added shops or whatever needs to go on. So
Go the next level.
Yep.
Dad, do you want to give us your final thoughts on this subject?
You're going to leave the young ones to finish it up.
As it should be.
I loved working with my father. There was pain there and there was pleasure. I mean, going to work with my dad, the 17 years we worked together, it's some of the best times of my life. Now working with my son I can't imagine not doing that. I appreciate that hugely. Dad's been gone now, I think it's 12 years. I don't keep track of that crap because it makes me teary-eyed. But he's been gone a while. I miss him all the time.
Yep.
Appreciate each other and develop a relationship, because Dad's not always going to be around. There's a lot to be learned there. And so my advice is to as fathers, I don't know how many times I just wanted to choke you to death and put your head through a wall, but I didn't do it. I said, no, you're going to sit here and we're going to work this out. And I brought my anger and all the frustration level down so that we could work it out. Fathers, you got to do that. Parents, you have to do that. And I think just appreciate each other, because it's not always going to be like it is. So anyway, that's it for me.
I think that my father's probably been gone as long as yours then.
Yeah.
Yep.
About 12 years, February.
Crazy.
Yeah.
I remember when we drove him up to the tire shop, him and Mom, he cried his eyes out when I told him what we'd done. There's a little teary eye for you, Michael. Just one.
I know. I already got it. I already checked her off.
Got it off at least once. I think I saw Mike kind of turn his head and I think it was
I just got an itchy eye.
Yeah, I think it was the itchy eye, not here. Go ahead, Ken.
Yeah, this thing is life, man. It's heavy, and I'm kind of lucky that I fell into this. I had the opportunity because I didn't know really what I was going to do with my life, and honestly, I didn't have a relationship with you until I started working for you. Just because you were just like your dad, you worked your ass off. You were. I mean, growing up, you started teaching and training and consulting when I was like 6 or 7, and you'd be gone for 3 to 5 weeks at a time, And I just hear him on the phone and stuff. So it was kind of a blessing to be able to spend that time. And that's why the other day I was like, we're at lunch and we're talking about the business, and I was just like, I just want to appreciate this for a moment, because I know that someday it's not going to be this anymore. And all the work, all the challenges we've been through together, like those are going to be just memories. And I won't be able to go see you in your office someday, and when I'm having a hard day, and just kind of talk to you about it. So it's, it sucks to think about that, but I'm very happy that I've had the opportunity to do this. And
I think Michael's last. So
yeah, I mean, I was going to say essentially the exact same thing as Kent. I mean, growing up, I think we had a good relationship and we enjoyed doing things, but working together and working with each other has really changed our relationship outside of work. I do appreciate every moment that I spend with you, and watching us lose Opa as early as we did. I think that really put life into perspective for you, Dad, obviously. And you definitely learned to cherish things differently and appreciate them more. And I think that was really an important step for you. And that's definitely really helped our relationship develop over the years. And I mean, I think that's, as shitty as it is to lose someone, I think it was a major a major turning point in your life. And, you know, working together it's awesome. I mean, would I still be in this industry if my dad didn't own a shop? I don't even know if I would be in this industry, to be perfectly honest with you. I got out of high school and I was going to go work in the oil patch like every other 18-year-old kid in Alberta. And my dad went, "Why the hell are you doing that? That's not a career. Get your ticket." And so here I am. And now, you know what? Every once in a while, I get to go out in the shop and play technician, and it's a lot of fun. I still, you know, I had to work on a car last week, a couple of days actually, and it's a lot of fun. I still enjoy fixing them, and I'm even more passionate about trying to keep people's vehicles safe and keep them safe, and you know what, make a little money while we're doing it. So
Yep.
Thank you guys so much for being on this this podcast. I feel it's a very special episode. Again, we're probably gonna have to have a part 2 because there's a whole bunch of stuff we didn't get into. So thank you, Mike. Thank you, Jerry. You guys run some
Thank you,
really
guys.
amazing shops up there in Canada. I want to remind the viewers, if you're still listening to this and you're maybe getting a little teary-eyed, go ahead and like and share and follow this podcast because there's shops out there who probably need to hear some of the stuff we talked about today. If you guys are looking for better education or more resources, you can always go to gearforshops.com, where we are adding new courses every single month that are very targeted, very guided, very specific. So we're not trying to waste your time. They're very intentional. So go and check them out. We're adding new topics every single month from experts in their fields. It's not just going to be me or my dad on there. We've got a lot of other trainers on there. Tune in on February 10th for our next episode, episode 65, which we're going to get into the future of auto repair. It's going to focus on what changes are coming in the industry, the impact that COVID has had, not just the initial, but what are the ramifications that are going to continue on, and what shops are apprehensive about looking forward to. Find us, the Institute's Leading Edge, on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Spotify, and Podbean. Again, thank you guys so much for being here today, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, guys.
thanks.
Thank you.